to our wonderful staff at the ANCA Western Region office, and to our volunteers. As a grassroots organization, we rely heavily on our volunteers for all of our projects. Thanks to all of you for making this day possible. At this time, I'd like to invite the chairwoman of the ANCA Western Region, Ms. Nora Hosepian, to introduce Dr. Davit Babayan, the Foreign Minister of the Republic of Artsakh.
Good afternoon. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for being here today. I first want to recognize our event sponsor for this grassroots conference, Mr. and Mrs. Sarkis and Lunes Efetjan, whose generosity made it possible for us to organize this conference, as well as to invite over 100 students from our Armenian high schools to participate, because it's important for the youth and our students to understand what's happening to our nation these days. We're grateful to each and every one of you who are here because you recognize the importance of grassroots activism, learning the facts, analyzing the issues, and empowering our community to be the most vocal and best organized voice advocating for the Armenian cause. As the COVID pandemic began to subside, we organized this conference with some apprehension, not sure what to expect with respect to COVID. But fortunately, when we reached out to each of our panelists from near and far, they were all eager to come. COVID was not going to stop them. And we're thankful that they did. Then, when last week's invasion of the sovereign territory of Armenia occurred, we seriously considered canceling this conference as well as tomorrow's gala awards banquet. But when we asked our panelists after the invasion whether they wanted to cancel, unequivocally and unanimously, they all reaffirmed their commitment to be here because they felt, and we also felt, that now is more important than ever to show strength and solidarity for Armenia, for Artsakh, and for our nation. And we were not going to allow any Azeri invasion to force us to stop our work. And so here we are at this sold-out grassroots conference, and as I said, we weren't going to allow anyone to stop us, and neither were you, because here you are, and thank you for that. And let us also thank each of our panelists, the ones that we heard from already this morning in their amazing presentations, as well as the ones we're going to hear from in the coming hours. Let us thank all of them for being here, and if you can please stand up so we can give you a round of applause, please. If you try to stand, the panelists. We chose to dedicate this year's conference to Artsakh, an integral and essential part of the Armenian homeland, which has fought for 3 decades on the world stage for recognition, independence, and freedom, even while facing a terrible existential threat from Azerbaijan. The Artsakh War of 2020 and the most recent invasion by Azerbaijan into the sovereign territory of Armenia has left many of us, all of us, I would say, disheartened, confused, disillusioned, and often questioning what role we can play to try to secure security and freedom for our homeland. So to help us understand the nuances and to guide us on what the needs are for Artsakh and for the Armenian homeland as a whole, we invited Artsakh's Foreign Minister, Dr. Davit Babayan, for his first visit to the United States in this capacity. Tomorrow, we will proudly bestow upon him the ANCA Western Region's most prestigious Freedom Award in recognition of his decades of service and sacrifice for Artsakh and the Armenian nation. A native of Artsakh's capital, Stepanakert, Davit Babayan has spent over 2 decades in public service. This is his second tour of duty as foreign minister. Prior to that, he has served in multiple positions, ranging from being an advisor and spokesperson to Artsakh's president, to heading the Central Information Department. He also founded and currently leads the Artsakh Conservative Party. Dr. Babayan has earned degrees in economics from the Yerevan Institute of National Economy and master's degrees from the American University of Armenia and the Central European University in Budapest. He holds a doctorate in historical science from the Armenian National Academy of Sciences Institute of Oriental Studies. And as a diplomat and scholar, he has authored more than 300 articles on the plight of Artsakh, the need for international recognition and intervention in the name of human rights, Azerbaijan and Artsakh negotiations, Caucasus geopolitics, great power competition, and Chinese geopolitics. Last week, at the start of his journey to the United States, on our invitation, he met with dozens of members of Congress in Washington, D.C. to ensure that Artsakh remains on the U.S. foreign policy agenda. In 2021, after the war, Dr. Babayan appealed to multiple international organizations, including the United Nations, the Council of Europe, and the OSCE Minsk Group, to demand the release of Armenian civilians and soldiers being held captive as prisoners of war in Azerbaijan. His meticulous appeals exposed that the actions of the Azeri government were a direct violation of Article 4 of the Geneva Convention, and that their holding and treatment of prisoners was a gross violation of international law. We are proud of his accomplishments, his outspokenness, his courage, and his leadership, and we are grateful to have him with us today. Please help me welcome the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Artsakh, Dr. Davit Babayan.
Dear compatriots, brothers and sisters, I am very glad to be here to meet you, all of you and each of you. There are many people with whom we are being familiar for more than a decade, even more, working closely, doing different things and realizing different projects and programs in Artsakh and Armenia. I would like to greet everybody on behalf of the Artsakh people, the American community of, the Armenian community of America, the Western Coast in particular, are a very specific segment of our diaspora. Well, geographically, we are one of the most distant communities, distant from our homeland. On the other hand, we are one of the closest, because for many years, the dedicated work of American Armenian community actually strengthened Artsakh and Armenia, paved the way for their social, economic development, and increasing the level of security. We have here actually part and parcel of Armenia, historical Armenia and Artsakh. We have here political parties, we have here mass media, organizations, churches. Of course, with all problems intrinsic to Armenian people, with all hopes that we have. I would like to also underline the role of Haidat in our life in general, in Armenian national agenda. I would like to thank Haidat and Nora Hovsepian for inviting us here and organizing this event. It is a great pleasure and honor because I see people who are dedicated to Armenian cause. I see people who live with Artsakh, and these are not only ethnic Armenians. I see here also Americans who equally love our country. This is very important, and I would like to again thank you for this dedication, because you materialized Armenian dream, albeit outside historical homeland. You proved in practice that Armenian talent can achieve everything by hard work, dedication, of course, unity. You all, I am very much confident, want to know about the situation in our region, in Artsakh, in Armenia, because this is a kind of essence of your life too. I would like to be very frank with you. I am not a person who is going to cheat you or say maybe something which you want to hear. No, I'm going to say the truth. Because it's very important. We have to know the exact situation, the state of affairs, in order to be ready for any development. We have to be brave, honest enough to face reality. We even have to be more brave, honest, and patient to overcome those difficulties. Our country is in a very difficult situation, the homeland. And my colleagues before me, each of them presented those perils and dangers. We face existential threats on the part of the enemy. Besides, after this 2020 war, there are some processes within the Armenian world which are weakening our national spirit, because we are a little bit lost. The notion of victory became, unfortunately, a stigma in our nation, which is a very bad thing, because a nation who lives in such a surrounding must have a totally different comprehension of victory. Our society is divided very deeply. We are like in a situation of mental and psychological civil war with each other. The level of hatred, discrepancies, differences are culminating. Besides, some trends boosting the complex of inferiority are also developing. On the other hand, we have an enemy who has got a complex of superiority, who thinks that it can crush us, who wants to do that by every possible means. Of course, one of the crucial points is to understand, can we overcome this situation? What will be the future of Artsakh? Do we have future at all? Our enemy says, no, these people is doomed to failure and destruction. Should we agree with this? Never ever. Yes, we are in a very difficult situation. The most difficult situation in our history. Even worse than 1915. But it doesn't mean that we are unable to overcome those difficulties. It's a challenge, God-given challenge, which we have to overcome. And we will do that. It's not the end of our history. It is the beginning of another page. But everything depends on us. Armenian people is a specific nation. It is impossible to defeat our nation from outside. But we are very much vulnerable inside. If you look at our history, millennia-long history, then you will see that we were never defeated by a stronger, more patriotic enemy. All our defeats could be classified as self-defeats. There is a saying that there are no eternal enemies or friends, there are eternal interests. No, brothers and sisters, there are eternal enemies. Selfishness, lack of patriotism, greed. We have been defeated by them, not by Turkey, Azerbaijan, or other countries. If we can struggle with those enemies, believe me, we will register such a victories that we even now don't even dare to imagine. But this is possible. Why it is possible? Because of different trends and different phenomena. First of all, the existence of Artsakh is important for many global and regional players. Because without Artsakh, we will have a totally different Caucasian region, which will bear or have existential threats to many countries. It will drastically change the geopolitical landscape, not only in that region and nearby spaces, but also globally. So there is a possibility to use international trends. What we have to do is just to be united. Why Azerbaijan and Turkey are now attacking Armenia? Of course, it's hatred, it's expansionism. All these things we have there, definitely.
What about Russia?
But there is another place. So I've come here to talk about some issues. Don't behave yourself in a correct way. I will answer all the questions. This is one of the manifestations that we are not united, and we lack wisdom. My kids are there. I am not coming here to speculate different issues. If you think that I cannot answer your question or anybody's question, you are totally wrong. So, Don't think that we are crashed or we are unable to answer anybody. We have to be wise, because our destiny is at serious peril. This man is talking about Russia forgetting Azerbaijan and Turkey. It's abnormal to think in that way. It bears very difficult risks. But I will talk about that later on. And it's not polite to interrupt anybody. First of all, you have to respect yourself, your nation, and your compatriots to be able to face other things. Consequently, the enemy is attacking Armenia for different purposes. Of course, it's aggression, as I mentioned, expansionism. But there is also one very important key moment here, is Artsakh. Because it wants to do that, to finally destroy our spirit, so that our people will say, we don't want Artsakh. This is a redemption price for all those difficulties. No, it will open a new age of genocide, because without Artsakh there will be no Armenia. Without Armenia, our beloved diaspora will vanish, and we know what kind of spirit, what kind of future you will have. This is why, brothers and sisters, I call you, I beg you, let us make Artsakh-centric policy one of the, maybe the most important basis of our unity, at least for some period of time. We have very little time to organize ourselves, because, again, Artsakh is a heavy thing. It was a very heavy shield, but it's not a burden. I am very much confident that we are able to overcome those difficulties, because I see people like you, dedicated, strong. We just need a little bit more, to be a little bit more organized. And then we can do whatever we must do as a God-chosen people. Don't forget about that. So I would like to thank you. God bless all of you. Let God give us wisdom, strength, and faith, unshakable faith. These are the keys for future victories. Thank you very much.
Before we move on to at least 4 or 5 questions, as I mentioned during the last panel, we have a couple that I can pose to Foreign Minister Babayan, but you'll also, if you have an opportunity, grab a piece of paper and submit some questions regarding specifically on Artsakh. But in regards to the remark about Russia, let me just point out one thing. As a Syrian Armenian who has lived in Armenia, who has traveled to Artsakh on many occasions and was in Armenia during the 2020 war, it is so easy for a diasporan Armenian, whatever corner of the world they're sitting in, whether it's in the United States or Russia or Europe, to constantly give orders and directives as to what the Armenian government or the Artsakh government should do, when your personal and physical existence is not under threat. If you are so concerned about the policies of the Republic of Artsakh or the policies of the Republic of Armenia, please be my guest. Move to Armenia, elect the government that you want to elect, and let them present the policy positions you want.
So I would like just to add something. Indeed, we have to be very wise. There are only two people in this world who have the luxury to maintain good relations with many countries who have even problems with each other. These are Armenians and the Jewish people. Why? Because we have diasporas. It gives us an opportunity to avoid all those corners. We must have good relations, fraternal relations, with all those countries where we have diaspora. Russia, United States, Iran, France, Belgium, whatever. If we have this opportunity and we don't use it, there are only two explanations. Either it's lack of knowledge or it's a lack of patriotism. Look how Turkey behaves. It's a close friend of the United States and it's a close friend of Russia. It maximizes its interests. We don't have that time and luxury, again, to try to play off the giants one against another. You want Artsakh to be destroyed? Or if you don't have corresponding knowledge, ask us, we will describe you. But what kind of thing? Why we have to blame any state if we can have good relations with all of them? This is unbelievable. This is why I call you. We don't have this luxury. Believe me, we are very much endangered. And we have to do everything possible to save the country without going deep into who is right and who is wrong. We have only two enemies. Our eternal enemy, which I mentioned, egoism, lack of patriotism, etc., and two external, Turkey and Azerbaijan. That's all. And if people don't understand that, again, these are because of the two things. We have to be very clear and frank, because we are not in a position to try to make experiments and philosophically, talk about different things. Because we are sandwiched between predators who are going to suffocate us. Please, take this into consideration.
Thank you, Foreign Minister. Just one last thing. As citizens of this country and as taxpayers, you have the opportunity to voice out your discontent towards the U.S. government's policies towards Armenia and Artsakh. So push the U.S. government to support Artsakh and Armenia as much as you can. Do it every day that you have the opportunity to voice out your opinion in a country that protects your freedom of speech rights. But my question, and this is a difficult question, which has actually come up in Armenia also recently, in light of the recent attacks by Azerbaijan on the sovereign territories of Armenia, and this was posed during the last discussion with Dr. Tatoyan, was what would be the effects of the recognition of the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan? The question was framed more from the perspective of Armenia, but I will pose it to you, Foreign Minister, to tackle the question from the perspective of Artsakh in this specific case. Would the recognition of the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan by Armenia impact Artsakh in any way or not?
I even don't want to believe that any normal Armenian can recognize Artsakh part of Azerbaijan. This is what the enemy wants. Because whenever it will be signed by any Armenian government, it will open, actually it will close the page of our history. What does it mean to recognize Artsakh part of Azerbaijan? It means to recognize yourself not a nation, not a people, but a breed without any values, without any history, without any dignity. We cannot and we will never be part of Azerbaijan. This is I am confident that this is the opinion of all normal patriotic Armenians. Because being part of Azerbaijan, it means total destruction, not only of Artsakh, but also Armenia and the diaspora. Many people frequently ask this question. I always respond in that way. Analogies are very important. Some may say that, well, the most important thing is rights and liberties of people. You see these poor Jewish people and other people in the German concentration camps, they also had the rights and liberties. They have a right to sleep 10 minutes a day. They were free to see whatever dream they saw. But can you imagine that within Nazi Germany there could be an autonomous Jewish entity? Ghettos? Yes. Concentration camps? Yes. We are not going to do the same. It doesn't mean that there is a hatred towards particular people. There are no bad or good people. There are bad, dangerous, and normal states which actually brainwash their people to commit such atrocities. This is why we don't have to hate anybody. This is not the only basis of loving your country. We have to love our country. And this will give us strength to overcome those difficulties.
Thank you. Again, the next question was from the previous panel, but what are the strategic plans of Artsakh going forward to ensure the security of the Armenians of Artsakh? I reframed the question a little bit because it was addressing Armenia and Artsakh, but in your case, just Artsakh.
Well, we have to survive. We have to at least somehow protect what has been left from Artsakh. The enemy occupied 80% of our territory. It deprived us of the bulk of our economic resources. The space of our geopolitical maneuvering has shrunk dramatically. We have to understand all of this. What we can do. First of all, we have to have principles. You know, any state which is wounded severely like we, you know, bleeding, but if it has principles, the world considers them, takes them into consideration. And not only the world, many other countries. We have to demonstrate to the enemies and to the friends that Artsakh matters. This must be done both by Artsakh, Armenia, and by diaspora. In what way? Making Artsakh-centrism the basis of our life. For example, some very simple daily example. I know that every organization, Armenian organization, is congratulating, let's say, President of United States, Secretary of State, whatever, on Merry Christmas or whatever, put one word about Artsakh there. You can find appropriate formulas. Every time, at every proper and improper occasion, put it there. It will be noticed immediately by friends and by enemies that these people indeed loves Artsakh and are dedicated to Artsakh, and they will never ever accept Artsakh to be part of Azerbaijan. Demonstrate your strength, your dedication, even in simple things, and then we can elaborate other strategies and projects too. But it should be on a daily basis, and the world has to know that this piece of land is crucial for the entire Armenian people. In that case, it will help Artsakh demonstrate its geopolitical significance, demonstrate that albeit it's a small country, but it's a global one, because we have diaspora everywhere who consider Artsakh, our compatriots, consider Artsakh to be one of the most important pan-Armenian values, and it will help. On the other hand, of course, we have to work with different countries. We have to do everything possible, again, showing our strong principle stance, and it is possible. Indeed, it is possible to save the country. We still have possibilities.
Thank you. The next question was submitted during this session. Minister Babayan, it's an honor to have you with us. In your remarks, you said, without Artsakh, there is no Armenia. Please elaborate or explain as to how you arrived at such a conclusion. Thank you.
You know, Artsakh plays a very significant role in Armenian history, always. Historically, our history is a very, difficult one. But historically, Artsakh, together with part of Sunik, Zeytun, Sasun, those places, always, almost always, maintained their independence, semi-independence, sovereignty. It was kind of a genetic pool of our statehood. Besides, national liberation movement started in Artsakh. Of course, the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, all our victories, are a child of the entire Armenian people, of Armenia, diaspora, and Artsakh itself. For many centuries, Armenian people were enslaved on its own historical territory. This started to generate, as I mentioned, complex of inferiority, which culminated after 1915 genocide, because we lost 2/3 of our territory, material, non-material wealth, everything, people, population. And the Armenians were spread all over the world. You know that better than I. And in the diaspora, the most important idea that helped keep Armenian national identity was memory of genocide, which is a very strong idea, but it's a victimizing idea. This is why assimilation started in 1960s, 70s, because it's much better to be victorious American, French, Russian than always crying Armenian. And it was Artsakh movement. And our victories, splendid victories, during the first and second Artsakh wars, that help us get rid of this complex of inferiority. Because in this region, when you have this kind of giants, Turkey, Azerbaijan, wanting to just destroy us, we have to be like yogas. Yogas have the same tissue, the same blood, but their spirit is so strong that then they can go through such obstacles that a normal person is terrifying. This was the spirit of these victories. And now when it is endangered, why the enemy wants to destroy Artsakh? Because they want to destroy our spirit. It's not geographical thing, Artsakh itself. It's an idea, it's a value. Artsakh is in each of you. It is again not geographical thing. Geography is also here, but it's only a tiny part. Because Artsakh is more than geography. Artsakh is part and parcel of our spirit. This is why they want to destroy it. After that, Armenia and Armenian people will be totally crushed. In geopolitics, it is very important to be always subject, actor, not object. In order to be geopolitical actor or subject, you have to have principles, you have to have your strengths. Without Artsakh, Armenia will never ever be a subject or actor, geopolitical actor. It will become an object, just a territory, tiny territory which will be swallowed by much stronger enemies. This is why it's a challenge to our people, which we should face and overcome. And I'm confident that we can.
We have a couple of questions from the students of Ferahian School. This should be, what happened to the Mamik and Babik monument, and what do we do if they take our motherland from us?
Tatik and Babik are in Artsakh, still standing and will stand forever. In order to somehow attract your attention from these all political topics, I would like just to mention a few words about this monument, because it has a very symbolic meaning. First of all, it resembles Mount Ararat, if you see, and it was done intentionally. This is why Azeri authorities didn't allow to build that monument for many years. Second, it is a symbol of paradise, Adam and Eve living there. And of course, it also symbolizes our deep roots. We don't need such world without Artsakh, I think. What will we do? We will die. If not physically, but mentally and morally, there will be no normal, patriotic people at all. This is why we have to do everything possible to commemorate 100 years of Davit Babayan, 200, 300, millennia, etc., etc.
Thank you, Foreign Minister. Unfortunately, we're already over the allotted time for this session, but I will ask the question without expecting you to necessarily answer it, because I think this would require a few hours of serious deliberation. Why didn't Artsakh get united with Armenia so that the Russians can also defend Artsakh along with Armenia? And Armenia and Artsakh united defend one another was the question. So basically, why didn't Armenia and Artsakh unite back after the victory? And we are where we are.
Well, first of all, we have to understand what is unity. Former formal unification and becoming one country is, of course, our ultimate goal. The movement of 1988 was for reunification. Not unity, reunification. But we were very naive people at that time. In geopolitics, naiveness is a very dangerous thing because there are predators all over. This is why after some period of time struggling, we understood that from political point of view, formal, legal, de jure reunification, not de facto, it is very difficult because Azerbaijan immediately presented that as a territorial dispute. On the other hand, when you say it's self-determination, we believed in international law. We were very naive. Self-determination actually had more possibilities for Artsakh to survive because we proclaimed independence, but we actually formed an integrated, very integrated system with Armenia, even now. But if we say it's self-determination, we also somehow secured Armenia from different attacks about, aggression, territorial dispute, etc., etc. So it was calculated purely for that very reasons. What to do to cushion the effect of possible, pressing on the Republic of Armenia, and to also secure international support. Now we have entered an era of naked geopolitics, where principles, international law, other things, unfortunately, are not at the front line of international geopolitical agenda. But anyway, independence, de jure independence, but de facto integration is a very wise strategy. We have been also integrating with diaspora. This is why this is a purely technical thing. Some people don't understand that and start to speculate. No, it doesn't mean that we don't have to pay attention to what's going on. It is geopolitics. It's a very dangerous thing. It's not a playground. It's a polygon, rather, with different weapons being tested every minute. What we have to do is just to save Artsakh and Armenian state together. Because it is Armenia in general, which consists of the Republic of Armenia and the Artsakh Republic. As to our flag, today there was a comment that even flag divides us. We have to know the meaning of the flag. Again, lack of knowledge may bring to extreme ideas which will hurt us. We can explain it from different other perspectives. But one of the explanation I would like to share with you, it's a very interesting thing. We didn't know about that. We were told about that in the year of 2000 by a very distinguished professor of the Hebrew University from Israel. A group of these people arrived in Nagorno-Karabakh, in Artsakh. And there was a very old man in his 90s, with this white beard like Moses, with this Jewish cap. At that time I worked at the foreign ministry, and the minister said, actually, I had to accompany them all around Artsakh. So the last day we were in Shushin. And that man called me and said, you see, I would like to know the meaning of your flag. I told the official version that this is the flag. Armenia, Artsakh was separated, and one day we are going to reunite. It symbolizes peace, and this is the national ornament of our carpets, etc., etc. He said, you know, who am I? I said, yes, this is your biography. And he was one of the most, well-known Kabbalists who consulted US presidents, some other people, Israeli political elite. He said, I came here, this is my last, let's say, task to accomplish, because I want to retire. He was 95. I came here to understand whether you did it intentionally or you didn't know the true meaning. Because in Kabbalistic studies, there are no coincidences. Everything is given from the above. I said, no. What does it mean? We did it intentionally. This was the logic. By the way, Robert knows, when I told the author of the flag, who was American Armenian, about the true meaning, we called emergency for this man. He was a very honest man. He didn't want even us to decorate him. When he died, I wrote a letter and we decorated him with posthumously, one of the highest orders of the Republic of Artsakh. So that man told us that in the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem, in the second temple of these Jewish people, Christ was there preaching. There was a separate room, the most sacred room, which was divided from the rest of the temple by a curtain with exactly the colors of Armenian flag. And when Jesus was crucified, an earthquake took place. And the curtain was torn apart exactly in the same manner as the Karabakh flag. So don't worry, we are in a difficult situation, but we are going to overcome everything.
Thank you very much for Minister Babayan. They're going to essentially kick us out of here because we're running 24 minutes late, but I know you have a lot of questions for Minister Babayan as well as some of our panelists. I just want to mention two upcoming events that Foreign Minister Babayan will be attending. One will be Monday the 26th at the Armenian Western Diocese Church at 7 p.m. and it's open for the public. And the second one is at UCLA with the Promise Institute on Wednesday the 28th at 7 p.m. I know also Dr. Yerishe Giragosyan, who will be speaking on the next panel about international